are people attached to your obedience. Whatever the Lord has laid on your heart to do, to say, there are people attached to your obedience. The gifts that God gives us and the things that He called us to do are never just for ourselves, they are for the body as a whole. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Have a Heart to Heart, where we talk all things life, faith, and growing in Christ. I am your host, Nita Danielle, and today, you guys, we are talking about being obedient and taking the leap of faith. We're talking about faith over fear, okay? And I know right now it is the end of 2025. As I'm filming this, it is actually December 30th, so we are literally wrapping up the end of the year, and most of us are in reflection mode, thinking about what went right, what went wrong this year. And I know there are probably so many of us that are sitting with another year of this idea of this thing that God has placed on our heart to do that we have not done due to fear. Maybe you feel unqualified. Maybe you feel unworthy. Maybe you have an idea to start the business, start the podcast, start the YouTube channel, dust off their resume to apply for another job, leave that toxic relationship, move to another state, whatever it is that God has placed on your heart. And you feel you have fear for whatever reason. If that is you, then I definitely think you will enjoy today's podcast. We are talking about today I'll be sharing my journey. I have taken so many leaps of faith in my life. And specifically today, we're going to talk about my leap of faith to start this podcast and try to be consistent with it and be obedient with it, because this is something that I did not want to do. I've never wanted a podcast, but I did this strictly out of obedience. And the reward has been so, so beautiful. So go ahead and grab your favorite drink, take a deep breath, and let's have a heart to heart. Yeah, so a little backstory. I have been an entrepreneur for, like I said, 15 years now. So I took a leap of faith to leave corporate, and I actually went to college for accounting. I took my first leap of faith to go into doing hair full time. I did that for 10 years. And then I took a second leap of faith to become a full-time content creator. And we're coming up on 4 or 5 years full time. So those were two big leaps of faith that I took, that the Lord carried me through, but they were also things that I didn't want to do. This particular podcast is my third big leap of faith, but it's not something that I wanted to do. The Lord laid the idea of this podcast on my heart about a year, or I think a little over a year and a half ago. I was actually doing a Bible study. If you guys follow me on socials, I did a Bible study called 30 Days of Proverbs in June. This was in 2024. And sidebar, I know there are 31 books in Proverbs, but there are 30 days in June, hence the name 30 Days of Proverbs in June, just because there's 30 days in the month of June. So yeah, the Lord had me doing that particular Bible study in June of 2024, I believe. And it was during that time as I'm asking the Lord, why do you have me doing this? I don't want to do this. I don't feel qualified. I don't want to talk about the Bible online. Like, I love the Lord and everything, but it's just certain stuff that I'm like, Lord, this can just be between us. Why do I have to, get what you're giving me and then turn around and go share it with other people? That's just not something I've ever wanted to do. On top of the fact that I felt like I'm not a minister, a pastor, a deacon, a theologian. I'm none of that. I'm just a regular woman who loves the Lord and has come to love and enjoy studying the Bible for myself. And he was like, well, you need to get used to it, because this is what I'm calling you to do. Who you calling who to do? Because you could have been talking about me. You could have been talking about your girl. Like, no, But anyway, during that time, the Lord laid on my heart the idea of doing a podcast. And it had a different name at the time. So I just jotted it down in my prayer journal and went on about my business, because I heard it, but I was like, Lord, you couldn't be talking about me. I do not like the sound of my speaking voice. Right now, it's a little raspy because I'm getting over a cold, but I just don't like the sound of my voice. I do not have confidence in public speaking, contrary to what people probably believe, because I talk on camera for a living. But yeah, and I struggled with an insecurity about my ability to clearly articulate my thoughts. I know that I also speak fast sometimes, but typically I do that when I'm very nervous, because I also have had this thing about, nobody cares what I have to say. So I found that sometimes I try to rush through what I have to say because I feel like people want me to hurry up and be quiet. Now, again, has anyone told me this? No. These are just my insecurities. And I know it was the enemy trying to come against what the Lord has called me to do. But these are all of my insecurities. These are just my feelings that I did lay before the Lord because when he gave me the idea, I jotted it down in my prayer journal, went on about my business, but he kept bringing it up in my prayer time. And so I'm like, okay, Lord, listen, I don't like the sound of my speaking voice. I don't really want to talk. I've never wanted to do a podcast. What are we talking about? Who's going to listen to me? Don't nobody care about what I have to say. I was just like having all of these rebuttals that I'm listening out to the Lord, like, nah, you got the wrong one. Like, nah, you ain't talking about me, Lord. You don't want me to do that. Like, no. And I will never forget the Lord reminded me that he would give me what to say. He would tell me what to say. And he was like, it's not about people caring what you have to say. I'm using you as a vessel to say what I want you to say. I'm using you as a vessel to show people what it looks like to walk with Christ and to live for him and to walk through sanctification. I'm not requiring perfection. What I am requiring is a submitted heart, which is what you do have. And I'm like, okay. And so even at that time, I still didn't, put it into action. I was just kind of like, okay, Lord, I hear you, but I still sat on it. Okay, so at the end of 2024, maybe early 25, I was on a consecration or fast, and the Lord brought up the podcast again. I said, okay, Lord, if you can just give me a confirmation that this is from you, that you're instructing me to do this, I will give it my all. I'm going to do it. I said, but I just want to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly. Can you please just confirm? So I did that. And at that time, I also went ahead and just started doing, just a little Google searching, doing a little research, because again, I didn't know anything about the podcast space. I listened to podcasts, yes, but I never thought about doing one on my own. So I wanted to see, what equipment I would need, what platforms do you use. I'm literally just Googling, how do you start a podcast? Because I knew nothing about it. And so I also had the idea to reach out to a woman whose podcast I love is Tatum Tamia of the Blessed and Bossed Up podcast. She is a believer and she has a faith-based podcast specifically for entrepreneurs. If you have not checked it out, I will link her podcast in the description box down below. But I was like, man, Lord, also if you're asking me to do this, I would love to learn from her because she's a believer in the space. She's had her podcast for I think almost 10 years or 9 years. So she has tenure in the space and I would love to learn from her. So I thought about sending her an email and I was like, let me go to her website and see if she does classes or she has any kind of e-courses or anything on the podcast. So I went to her website. I didn't see anything. I drafted out an email or started to, and I was like, no, let me not, maybe she don't offer classes. I'll just whatever. Y'all. Maybe a week or two later, I'm listening to her podcast, and she says that she has a podcast cohort coming up for new podcasters. I was like, okay, Lord, all right. I'm going to take this as the confirmation and the sign because I wanted to reach out. I didn't see anything on the website. And apparently she had been doing those cohorts for a few years, but she just does them kind of every so often, which is, I guess, why I didn't see anything on the website. Nonetheless, I'm listening to the podcast. I see she's having the cohort. I go ahead and sign up, and I take that as my sign from the Lord. So I said, okay, I'm going to do the podcast. I will go through this cohort, learn what I need to learn. I will, do the things. So as I'm going through the cohort, that's kind of where, I learned that in addition to just my own research. And we put a date on the calendar during that time in that cohort. And I think I set the date for June or July of this year, which the podcast did launch at the end of June. I think the first episode aired on June 30th. Nonetheless, okay, so I went ahead and I set my date. I submitted it to the Lord. And then I went ahead, we getting started on the podcast. So I had an idea for a title. And, I kind of had an idea for a structure of how it should go. Also, during that time, we did go on another fast where I sat with the Lord, about, okay, Lord, what is your idea for this podcast? What are we talking about? What is the goal? Who is the audience? Who am I speaking to? What do you want with this? Because again, this is not my bright idea. So you're going to have to lead me here because I have nothing. I have nothing but insecurity, honestly, and obedience. So at that time, the Lord, just kind of gave me some wisdom and direction for who I'm talking to, etc. Fast forward, we came up with the name, Let's Have a Heart to Heart, which the Lord did direct eventually. It took a while, if I'm honest with you guys. I went back and forth about so many things with this podcast. But anyway, moving forward, we got stuck to the name, Let's Have a Heart to Heart, which I do love, 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 love. Shout out to Jesus. And you guys, I had filmed my first pilot episode. Got great feedback. I had like a test group and everything, had great feedback. And so I'm starting to sit with the Lord, like, okay, well, let's go ahead and, batch record so that when I launch, I can have a few episodes already filmed and in the chamber. So as I'm sitting with the Lord about the episode and preparing for other ones, the Lord is actually like, you know what, that's not going to be the first episode. This is going to be the first episode, which, if you have been around, the first episode was about my journey with forgiveness, where I talked about some very, very personal traumatic experiences that I've gone through. And I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I was like, Lord, what? I was so angry with God because I felt bamboozled, if I'm honest, because I'm like, Lord, you know that if I knew you were going to have me to talk about this on this podcast or in public, I would have said no, which is probably why the Lord didn't give me that instruction from the beginning. But also, I was like, I don't want to start this podcast with my trauma. Like, I don't want to start this podcast with that much vulnerability. This is a very vulnerable experience that I went through. I don't want to share that with the world. And one thing about creating content, whether it be a podcast or TikToks or Reels or whatever, once you put some stuff out there, I can't control how it's received. People take things and create their own narratives. People take things and hear what they want to hear, even though I may say one thing. It, once you create content, you just can't control how people spin it. People clip stuff up. We all know, we've all seen it. And this particular subject was just something that was just, again, it's very traumatic experience that I had, something that's very near and dear to my heart. And I was like, God, I don't want to put that out there. And what he kept telling me was, not only was that a part of my healing, he said, it's going to free so many other women. It's not just about you. And I had to sit with that. And yeah, like, and for about a month, I shut down. I was like, Lord, I'm actually not doing this podcast because I feel like you bamboozle me. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to be that vulnerable online. I don't even know who's going to listen to this. Like, I just didn't want to do it. I just didn't want to do it. I shut down. I was like, whatever. And people would ask, like my friends, my close friends who knew about the podcast, because I didn't tell many people. They were like, how's the podcast coming? I'm like, it's not. It's not. What happened? And, I told him, like, the Lord is asking me to talk about forgiveness and, you know, um, some things that I went through that I just don't want to share publicly. I had already gone through trauma therapy and different things, but I'm like, it's one thing to be able to talk about it with my family and close friends. It's another thing to share this stuff online with the World Wide Web, and I don't know who's listening, I don't know who's watching, and I can't control the narrative that's being put out. I'm not doing it. And so I was like, no, shut down. Not doing it. Mm-mm. And like I said, I was very angry with God for about a month. And in that, the Lord met me with, matter of fact, that can just be a whole other podcast episode itself, because the Lord had to, there was a last piece in that situation that the Lord needed to heal, in which he did. And it was through that I was actually able to film the first episode. But when I tell y'all, when I finally came to it and said, okay, Lord, I'll do this. I'm going to be obedient, and I'm just going to have to trust you, because I don't have there's nothing else that I can do. I don't have a choice but to trust you and trust that there will be some kind of impact. If you're leading me to share this vulnerable story and this vulnerable piece of my life, and let me be very clear, anytime I share anything about my life, anything vulnerable or whatever, I'm not sharing for the sake of tea or just to be putting my business online. This is not a diary. I share for the Lord. Like, I'm sharing, and that specific episode was talking about forgiveness. And the Lord had me to share the specific things that I had to forgive, to encourage other women who have experienced those same things, that if I can forgive and the Lord can heal my heart, then you can forgive and he can heal your heart too. That was the premise. It's not to share tea, or it's not to, have an online diary. That's never, ever, ever my intent behind anything. The goal is always to point people to Christ. So if I'm sharing a vulnerable experience, or I'm sure even, before when I share, about how the Lord convicted me about drinking, I'm not on here putting my business on the internet for the sake. I'm sharing because the Lord convicted me, in a sense that if you've been feeling convicted by God, it encourages you to be obedient. This is why. This is what I've learned. And also to share what a real, true walk with Christ looks like. It's not perfection. And so That's what I believe the Lord has me. That's always my intent behind anything that I share about my life personally. It's always to point back to Christ, always to point back to Christ. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's just I share my experience to point back to Christ because I know that other people can relate in the same way. And I feel like we need to see and hear real. you know, it's not all roses and sunshine leaving for Christ. Okay. But anyway, so after that, I did finally film the first episode. And when I tell you guys, I tried to even ask God, like, okay, well, I know you said this is going to be the first episode. What are the other episodes going to be? When I tell you, He wouldn't give me nothing. The Lord would not give me any more episode topics, ideas, titles, nothing until I filmed that first episode. and the reason the show ended up being bi-weekly is because the Lord was like spoon feeding me. I didn't get the next episode until I did one. So when I did the first episode, the Lord gave me the second one. And then when I did the second episode, He gave me the third one. Like He gave me one at a time. He gave me one at a time. And on the one hand, I'm like, Lord, I hate this because, like I want a badge. I have other things to do. I have a life. I have a child. And sometimes that has led to the podcast not being as consistent because I have to wait on the Lord and what He's going to give me. Because again, this is not my bright idea. And this is all the Lord. This is the Lord's. This is straight up Jesus's podcast. Like I talk about whatever He tell me to say. And I don't know what I'm going to talk about until I go before Him and I hear from Him about what we're going to talk about on the next episode. That's it. I have nothing else. So if He don't tell me, I'm like, okay, Lord, well, I guess we don't have no episode this week because I don't have nothing to give the girls. Like I have nothing until you give it to me. And so, but in hindsight, I can tell you that it has taught me dependence on God. It has taught me that He is faithful. We are 13 episodes in, and each one of these 13 episodes, the Lord has shown up and been faithful to give me something to say. Even in that very first episode, I received so much feedback about how it was helpful and how it made others forgive or to even go before God and say, Lord, I can't forgive here. It's hard. Or for others who have experienced some of the things that I did to know that they're not alone and to know that God can heal them. And the only thing I asked of God with this podcast was like, Lord, if you're going to have me to be obedient, can I just see that it's impactful? That's all I asked for. I'm not doing this for money. I'm not doing it for a check. I'm not doing it for notoriety. I'm not trying to be nobody. All I have is obedience, and that's it. And He gave me just that. And I was so nervous, so extremely nervous. And I do get feedback sometimes, like when you were talking so fast, it's because I'm nervous. Those are the nerves. Like when I get nervous and I'm trying to just get it out, sometimes it just comes as me speaking very fast. Um, and I was extremely insecure about telling my story online and talking about things that I had gone through and like it was just a lot. It was just a lot. And I started off this podcast with nothing but obedience and nerves. That is literally it. I didn't have many goals. Like when we started the podcast, and I had a friend of mine who helped me. Shout out to Lundy. She helped me with some of the concepting and things. And she was like, okay, well, let's set some goals for the podcast. And I was like, I don't really have any. I don't know what the goal should be because again, this was not something that was on my vision board. Like I don't know. And so I think we set a goal for like 20 reviews, which we got more than that. I set a goal, I think, for maybe 500 YouTube subscribers, which we got 1,000. We have over 1,000 now, which is crazy. We have, I think, like maybe 1,200 followers on Instagram. And all of this is from me not even really promoting this podcast, y'all. Because I've been so nervous about this and I had so much insecurity behind my voice about the subject matter, not feeling qualified, not feeling like people cared about what I had to say or my experience, and honestly, feeling too churchy, feeling like, who wants to hear me talk about Christ? honestly. Not that I'm ashamed of the Lord, but I felt again, because I'm not a minister or a pastor or a deacon, who wants to hear me, just a regular girl who loves the Lord, talk about what I learned or talk about what God has brought me through or talk about my newfound love for studying the Bible or what I learned or all of that. And every fear, quote unquote, that I've had, the Lord is like, that's not true. It's a lie of the enemy. It's not true because people are listening to the podcast. It's not true because the reviews say otherwise. It's not true because every time I show up and every time I feel like nobody's watching or God, why am I doing this? I promise you, anytime I feel discouraged about this, somebody sends me a DM about this podcast and how the episode blessed them or how something I shared resonated with them or how, I mean, every single time. Oh, Jesus. I'm gonna stop crying. I'm gonna try my best to not to cry for the rest of this episode, but I am just so extremely grateful that I was obedient to the Lord. And I'm so thankful for how through this podcast, He showed me that um I learned that one of the gifts that God has given me is the gift of being a teacher and a communicator. And again, because of the insecurities with my voice and the insecurities I had about being able to clearly articulate my thoughts, I was like, oh God, you couldn't be talking about me. You can't be using me to communicate anything. On top of the fact that, I just kept saying, like, I'm not a minister, I'm not a theologian, I'm not a pastor, I'm just a regular girl, right? And God is like, I qualify and equip the called. I didn't ask you to go to seminary yet. I didn't ask you to be a perfect Patty. I asked you to have a submitted heart. I asked you to be obedient and trust that I will equip you. I will give you what to say. I will sharpen you as you continue to do this. As I've continued to walk this out, I've been very transparent about some of the ways that the Lord has convicted me. Some of the things He's had me to lay down. I haven't shared everything, but there are a lot of things the Lord has called me to lay down. I'm going back to school because God told me to, and from somebody who swore they would never go back. Never. I have paid off my student loans. I don't want to owe them people no more. Nothing. But I'm being obedient. Like the Lord has proven Himself to be faithful. And not only that, what He has shown me is what He's put in me. And through this podcast, I have been forced, I don't want to say forced, but it has shown me that the Lord has actually equipped me for everything He's called me to do. It showed me that I don't have to be perfect for Him to use me. Oh my gosh, I said I wasn't going to cry this whole episode. It was not my intent. And one of the main things that He told me through way of my coach is that there are people attached to my obedience. It's not just about me. And like I said, through you guys' comments and your DMs and your reviews, it's shown me just that. And like I said, my only goal with this podcast, the only ask that I had was like, Lord, let me see that it's impactful. Don't let me just be doing this for nothing. You right? And He has done just that. He has done just that. So I have to say thank you guys so much for your feedback, for your comments, for your DMs, for the reviews, for all of the things. For a long time, I did not even look at them unless it was a DM because I just didn't want, I was so nervous and so afraid in this journey that I didn't want any discouragement. And so I didn't look at the comments and I didn't look at the reviews because I did not want, I knew I was in a very vulnerable place in my walk in obedience with this, so I didn't want to see something that could possibly discourage me. But once I finally did look at them, they have been overwhelmingly beautiful to see how the Lord has used me. And I'm just so thankful. And it's just like, man, God can really use anybody. He can really use anybody. And it has confirmed what I believe He's told me is the goal of the podcast is to speak to the hearts of His women. And my prayer before I turn on this mic every time is that you hear and you see and you walk away knowing that you are seen, loved, and heard by God. I pray that Every episode is an answer to a prayer, whether it was actually prayed verbally or just a thought that you may have. I pray that you see that God cares about you. I pray that you know that there is nothing special about me that is not special about you. God loves you just the same. He hears your prayers. He sees your tears, and that He cares about His daughters. And that's really, like I said, all I have as far as a goal for this podcast. Which is something else the Lord did get on me about, because it's okay for me to dream with this. But if I'm honest, I had to wrap my mind around the fact that I can dream here. Because like I said, I just had nothing but, I started off this thing in this episode with nothing but obedience and insecurity and vibes. That's it. So, oh my gosh, y'all. I feel like I did a lot of rambling. I got completely off of my nose, but we're going to wrap this up with, what I've learned through this journey. And the first note is exactly what I said. There are people attached to your obedience. Whatever the Lord has laid on your heart to do, to say, there are people attached to your obedience. The gifts that God gives us and the things that He called us to do are never just for ourselves. They are for the body as a whole. So please know that there are people attached to your obedience. If you feel like me and you feel like nobody cares what you have to say, nobody cares about your content or your business or what you're selling or whatever, know that there are people attached. The gifts that God has given you, the ideas that He's placed inside of you, it's not just for you and it's not about you. There are people attached to your obedience and whatever God has placed on your heart to do. The second thing I put, the Lord has given me the gift of being a teacher and a communicator, which again, I did not see that at first, but this has given me confidence to trust what He's given me and to trust who He says I am versus what my fears tell me I am. My fears told me nobody cared about what I had to say. My fears told me that, my speaking voice, it wasn't as eloquent as it should be. And I talk too fast and I have this Southern drawl. Don't nobody want to hear that. That's not true. um, Another thing that I learned is that I do have value outside of beauty. And where that comes from, if you guys don't know, my full-time job is I'm a full-time content creator, and most of my content has been around plus size fashion and beauty. Before that, I did hair and makeup full-time for 10 years. So my background is in beauty, fashion, all of the things, and I do have a love and passion for it. But when the Lord laid on my heart to create other types of content, I felt like, well, Lord, nobody wants to see that from me. They only want to see the clothes. They only want to know the lip combo for the day. They want to know where the jewelry is from, where the outfit is from. And so this has taught me that there is value outside of beauty. And also, I am valuable not because of the content that I create. I'm valuable because God says I am. So it's another thing. This has taught me to detach my value from what I can produce and find value in who He says I am. I've learned that if the Lord has called me to do something, that He's already gone before me and that He will equip me to do what He has called and asked of me to do. And again, that's encouragement for anyone out there who is looking to start something, looking to do something that God has placed on your heart to do. Trust and believe, if God placed it on your heart to do, He will equip you. One thing that Tatum told me when I was starting this podcast and I was telling her about all of my fears, she said, one thing about trusting God is you have to trust his idea and that He knows what He's doing when He chose you to do the thing. So even if you don't trust your abilities and your capabilities, in which most times we usually don't, because if we have too much ability, we can't depend on God. But trust that He knew what He was doing when He chose you. Again, He equips and qualifies the called. He's not asking you to have it all together. He's not asking you to be the very best of the best in all the things. And that's not saying that you don't hone your craft. But what they're saying is trust that when He chose you, He knew what He was doing when He chose you. So one thing that I've been praying lately is for God to help me to see myself the way He does, because clearly I had a very skewed view of who I was. But God said, no, this is who I'm calling you to be. So I continually pray that the Lord helps me to see myself the way He sees me and not the way that I see me, my fears, my past, what I do and don't do, life and other people see me. No, Lord, help me to see myself the way You do. Perfection is not required for obedience. God is not calling us to be perfect. That would defeat the point of Jesus coming. He was the perfect sacrifice. We are not perfect. Now, yes, we are called to, be obedient, and we should be continually growing in Christ, but we will never be perfect. God is not asking you to be perfect. He's Mm. God is not asking you to be perfect. He is asking you or requiring actually of you to be obedient. And the last thing that I learned is that God is faithful. Like I said, I asked for impact, and He has done and given me just that. And He's proven it time and time again. And even in the moments where I felt discouraged, even in the moments where there was one point in the podcast where I took a month. Matter of fact, over a month. I did not post any podcast episodes. I felt discouraged. I was tired. There was so much going on. I'm like, God, like, oh, I got into one of those funks of why you have me doing this. And when I tell y'all during that month, I ran into so many of you guys, whether you listen to me on a podcast or whether you follow me on my other socials. I ran into a lot of you guys just out and about at Walmart, at the mall, at concerts, at the rodeo, like just out. And when I tell you, every single person said, not verbatim, but in some way, shape, or form, they were like, we love your content and all the things, but I love when you talk about Christ. I love the podcast. Oh, let me tell you what was my favorite episode. Every single person mentioned, I follow you wherever they follow me, and they's like, oh, and we love the podcast. When is another episode coming? Oh, we've been looking for the podcast. Have you uploaded and I missed it? I was like, oh. Okay, it's coming back, I promise. But I just, again, in my insecurity, I told y'all my insecurities and my feelings about this, and just not feeling qualified and not feeling just not feeling worthy or that anybody would care. The Lord has constantly reminded me that there are people attached to my obedience, and I want to encourage you the same way. There are people attached to your obedience. So yes, God is faithul. And so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up because I feel like I have rambled enough. We end every episode with a heart check. And the heart check today is, what is the Lord calling you to, and why haven't you been obedient? Now, if you have been obedient, cool. Give yourself a pat on the back. But if you have not been obedient, if the Lord has placed something on your heart, a new business, a podcast, a YouTube channel, like I said, moving to a new city, getting out of debt, applying for that other job, leaving that relationship, putting down the alcohol, whatever it is in whatever area of life. It doesn't have to be anything, starting a new business. It can be anything in life that the Lord is pressing on your heart to be obedient with. Why have you not been obedient? So I'm gonna leave you with that. And lastly, y'all, we have a giveaway to wrap up season 1. Again, I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in, for being on this journey with me. Although a little bit inconsistent, I promise we're gonna do better in season 2. I promise, I promise, I promise. But for this giveaway to wrap up season 1 is a token of my appreciation for you guys. We have 3 simple rules, okay? 3 simple rules. Number 1, I want you guys to sign up for our email list, okay? I will have the sign up in the description box down below, or there should be a QR code here if you're watching on YouTube. Go ahead and sign up for our email list, because for season 2, we will have some other goodies coming your way. I'm already plotting and excited about season 2, so I'm excited for you guys to see it and to tune in and to listen and all of the things. So go ahead and sign up for the email list. You guys can be notified when season 2 drops. It's going to be in February, but yeah, when season 2 drops and all of the things attached to that. Secondly, please leave us a review. Where can you leave a review, or how can you leave a review? On Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts. If you go to the main page of the Let's Have a Heart to Heart podcast and scroll all the way down to the bottom, it should say leave a review. It'll have 5 stars, and then you can type out something and you just leave a review. So number 1, sign up for the email list. Number 2, leave a review on Apple or Spotify, just one or the other. And number 3, just screenshot your review and send me an email so I can know, who you are, because I will be notifying you guys via email, because of course I can't communicate with you guys on the podcast any other way. So I have to have your email to let you know that you've won, and the winners will receive a $100 Amazon gift card. I'm going to choose 2 winners. So it'll be 2 $100 Amazon gift cards, 2 $100 Amazon gift cards. So go ahead and enter. Number 1, sign up for our email list. Number 2, leave a podcast review. If you've already left a review, just go ahead and screenshot the review you left. You don't have to leave another one. Now, if you do want to leave a second one, I appreciate it, okay? But go ahead and leave a review. And number 3, just screenshot your review and email it over to me so I can know that you did it. And also, I will notify you guys via that same email you sent me. I will let you know that you won. And again, I need your email to send you your e-gift card from Amazon, okay? The giveaway closes on Monday, January 5th, 2026, and the giveaway winners will be notified via email on Tuesday, January the 6th, 2026. All right, so that is it. I will have my email and everything in the description box down below or in the show notes if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, iHeartRadio, all of the things, honey. You will have all of my information in the description box down below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, I appreciate you guys for rocking with us for season 1. I pray that you, like I said, leave every episode encouraged, and I really pray that this encourages you to be obedient to whatever God has placed on your heart to do. There are people attached to your obedience. And of course, there's a reward in it for you as well. All right, y'all. Enjoy. Have a happy and safe new year, and I will see you guys in February.